All right, welcome back to the show. I guess I have to do a different intro now,
Yeah,
right?
you do, yeah.
We have a new name for the podcast to go along with kind of our new format that we've talked about in previous episodes. We probably should have done this all at once, but, whatever.
Hey, we're evolving.
Yes.
It's yes.
All right, new name of the podcast, Rochester Living.
Not Rochester.
Not just Rochester.
Okay.
No, because
All right. No, terrible name.
My wife said it was terrible.
And she
in
knows.
marketing.
She knows. Okay,
She's
all right.
So Rochester Living, are we still going to stick with the same episode, or is this episode 1?
No, let's just continue.
keep
Let's
it, okay.
sequentially, yeah.
All right, so welcome back to Rochester Living with Mark Siwiec and Corey James Moran. This is episode 177.
All right.
Appreciate you watching and listening along. Mark, how are you back from Tanzania?
I'm a little bit jet lagged.
You had a 95-hour return home.
Literally 43 hours. I mean, it was.
That sounds like a punishment for committing a crime. Like it really does.
So we're in Zanzibar. By the way, pro tip: Zanzibar, don't go.
Oh, really?
Don't go. And actually,
Billy Joel led us astray?
There's a Freddie Mercury, because Freddie Mercury's from there. There's a Freddie Mercury museum. 10 minutes to walk through the entire museum. Like literally, it's 50 square feet. Like there are photos of Freddie Mercury hanging on the wall.
That's it.
That's it. That's the museum.
Little underwhelming.
So Zanzibar, back to Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
Kilimanjaro to Paris. Paris to New York. New York to Rochester. We finally arrived after 43 hours last night. It wasn't the best trip, to be honest. I mean, like,
really?
No. I mean, I know that I should be like, oh my God, it was incredible, it was amazing, and yeah, there were a couple of moments, but the return on investment, part of it was. Traditionally, when you're on safari, you fly in a little puddle jumper. You land on a dirt airstrip. Actually, it's really funny because the plane doesn't just land on the dirt airstrip. They have to actually buzz the runway because of the animals that are on the airstrip.
Make sure they're
so
out of the way,
like the zebras, or like the monkeys or whatever.
The plane equivalent of getting a broom and shooing them away.
Yeah. So they buzz the airstrip and then you land and then a Jeep picks you up from your lodge, from your camp, whatever.
As one does.
And then 10 minutes later, you're either in the lodge or after traveling transatlantic, you land and then it's 2.5 hours in a Jeep from this dirt airstrip on a bumpy road until you get to your lodge, and then the lodge wasn't all that great, and then there weren't all that many great animals. Then 2 days later, you leave, 2.5 hours on the bumpy road. You then fly 20 minutes, half an hour to the next destination, 2.5 hours from that destination to your lodge. Like you're at 5 hours. No. Like it just wasn't worth it. And so I mean, I'm so glad that we went, but Tanzania,
Meh.
Nah, not so much.
Where's it rank in how many safaris have you done, by the way? This is your...
Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Kenya.
Maybe you're just safaried out, Mark. It's also possible.
Well, that's what Duffy said. Duffy literally, I booked the trip. He's like, another, literally like another safari. Anyway,
welcome
listen,
back.
Thank you. We should probably move on. Can we talk a little bit about, not only are we changing the name, but we're also changing the format. I mean, we should touch on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, we kind of talked about it in previous episodes, but we're going to be, obviously real estate focused. It's what we do. So we're going to talk about that.
Yep.
But we also want to be more Rochester focused. Stories happening. And then, we're continuing with our guests as well. So we've got a great guest with the Bills in the playoffs coming up on Sunday. I'm very happy that he agreed to come on the show. I'll be honest, I thought he was going to be too busy.
I can't believe, seriously, I can't believe it. Like I am so excited. I can't believe that he's actually doing this. So thank you in advance, and we'll make the introduction in just a minute.
We will. Let's get to our update though real quick. We'll power through here.
And then after the interview, then we're going to talk a little bit about things that are going on in Rochester.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. All right, very good.
All right, just kind of opening things up a little bit.
Okay.
Market update, we'll stick with that. We'll keep doing that. In terms of single-family active listings, Monroe County, still ticking up, not by a lot, 367 right now. That's up from 344 last week.
Okay.
6-county region, 628 last week. We're at 650 right now. Under contract pending properties, that continues to go down a little bit, 662 last week. We're down to 648 Monroe County, and then it was 1016 in the 6-county region, now down to 995. So slowly but surely, starting to tick back up. My buyers are getting a little impatient. They're asking when are the properties going to come on the market.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll see this trend continue. But by the end of this month, beginning of February, hopefully at that point we're going to see a little bit more inventory. Again, it's not going to be crazy, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's I was really expecting and anticipating a really hot start to the year. And it's not, I mean, now that I'm back, I mean, I have probably 15 phone calls that I'm going to make this weekend to sellers saying, listen, I realize it's 12 degrees out there, but like the buyers are out there and the buyers are anxious. So yeah, time to put your house on the market.
Some updates with mortgage interest rates. We'll kind of circle back to the economic data. I mean, it's shockingly enough, not bad.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
Let's start with the jobs report because we didn't get to talk about it last week when we recorded. So the U.S. added 256,000 jobs. The expectation was just shy of 100,000 below that number. Unemployment fell to 4.1, which was better than expected. Yep. So, based on all of last year, I don't know about you, Mark. I thought we were cooked at that point.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that the jobs report was that hot.
Oh, yeah.
Rates are going to skyrocket.
Well, but yes, we are cooked. I mean, I think the difference is, and the reason I didn't understand the question, you're looking at it in the short term.
Sure.
I'm looking at it in the long term. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, we're yeah. Go ahead.
Well, then you combine that with the CPI that came out, which was at 2.9%, third month in a row that it's increased after 6 months of decline.
Yeah.
We're going in the wrong direction. Although this is actually being seen as favorable in some circles, at least the core CPI. The core CPI was at 3.2%, which is actually just a little bit lower than the outlook of 3.3%. So that is what led to rates actually dropping decently. We were at 7.17 last week. We're at 7.07 right now.
That's your constant celebration.
We thought it was going to explode.
Seriously?
We thought it was going to explode. It was going to be 8%. It was going to be 8.5%.
Oh. Okay, great. So congratulations. Like, yes, we're gonna hand you your trophy for this week.
Yeah.
But let's look longer term.
Yes.
I mean, there is nothing on the horizon. I mean, CPI, the Consumer Price Index, again, as you said, coupled with PCE a few weeks ago, continues to trend upward. That's not good news. The jobs report came in 100,000 more jobs created than were anticipated or expected. So Wall Street celebrated, like a minor celebration, because it wasn't as bad as they thought.
They expected.
CPI, I'm going back to CPI. Sure. Yeah, it wasn't as bad as they were expecting. But there is nothing on the horizon that is going to cause the economy to start to cool down. If anything, as we've said ad nauseum, there are 3 distinct policies on the part of the incoming president that are going to cause inflation to start to tick upward again. And as a result of that, interest rates today, which you're celebrating, heralding at 7.07%. I'm just going to continue shitting all over your optimism, your enthusiasm.
A guy goes to the airport for 48 hours and he comes back with this attitude.
There's nothing on the horizon. I mean, I am very, very, very fearful as to what happens over the course of the next 2-3 months. So we'll see what happens.
Waller from the Fed, they did indicate that inflation is falling and suggested possible rate cuts in the first half of the year.
Okay. Okay.
What about that?
All right. Well, we'll see. All right.
They're just bullshitting us.
Listen, there are what 18, 19 governors of the Federal Reserve. So you got one outlier. I mean, everybody else is saying, and there's a lot of conversation about the fact that perhaps there aren't going to be any rate cuts for the remainder of this year. So it all remains to be seen. But this is one thing that you and I can agree on.
Yes,
this is not nearly the position that we thought we were going to be in at the beginning of January. We were really thinking that at this point in time, we were going to be at 6.5% or thereabouts, with interest rates continuing to fall. And you and I would both agree that is not happening, that we're not looking at interest rates at 6.25%. I mean, interest rates were at 6.11%. What, back in September?
Yeah.
And here we are, like a full point above that. So, yeah. Great. Break out the champagne there, bud.
It's not 8 still. We're trying to be positive here.
No. Yeah, and which is one of the reasons we love you, because you are always so affirmative and so positive. All right, so let's.
Want to bring in our guest?
I was going to say, please, like some good news. All right.
All right. Sports anchor and reporter for 13 Wham, content creator for Buffalo Plus, Dan Fetes. Dan, welcome.
Appreciate it. I love the talk. Like, I'm just glad I got to sit in on this because wife and I sold homes over the summer.
And did you use us?
So we bought and sold homes.
Don't mind him. He's been in the airport for 40 hours. He's a little surly today.
But it is fascinating hearing the knowledge, the expertise you guys are talking about. And
Good recovery.
Funny.
Good
yeah,
recovery.
No, and it's funny. It's like you guys are sitting there talking about it. I'm like, well, how was the rest of the play, Mrs. Lincoln? Like things aren't that bad, right? And it's like, so I just thought that was great. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Also, I bet you're happy that you're through the process of buying and selling for the foreseeable future.
Yes, very much. It's a whirlwind because like even like you talk about the homes on the market, like we were playing that game too of like when do you list and when all of that stuff. So it's a massive undertaking, I think, and especially because you do it so infrequently for most people. It's once in 20 years or every so not very often. So it was
used to be 7.
Yeah.
Used to be 7.
Yeah. So it's and I think we were 7. My wife and I had our first home, and then we outgrew it. And
You're the
it's
rare exception of that happening.
But
I feel like.
we bought in 2017, so completely different world, market, everything.
right.
So to go through it again was mind-boggling. Of like, what?
What's going on?
We get clients who will say to us, "Oh, no, I've bought her 2 or 3 homes, in my lifetime." I mean, we just bought it like 20 years ago, and I'm like.
Don't you remember me?
Yeah, like whatever you may remember, like just set it aside. Like there's something new that's been that's come around since then, which is the internet. I mean, like literally that in and of itself, let alone the economy and interest, all of that. So
and also just like the fascination or like the addiction of like when you're looking to buy a house and you just like live on like every single app. And you're just sitting there scrolling. So like once you finally got to it and you got to like delete those apps off the phone, it was very free.
I bet, yes.
That's great. That's terrific.
Funny.
I just, because we're going to segue here, I just need to pick up where Corey left off just a moment ago. Thank you so much. I mean, you are so busy right now.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, we got this, big game. So we're recording this on what, the 17th?
Yes.
So we're 2 days away from a huge game. And here it is that you found time, and you're. Plus, not only that, you've got. You told us just a few moments ago. You've also got a 5-week-old at home.
Yeah.
So where it is, or why it is, or how it is that we.
He's here in body. I don't know about mind and spirit as elsewhere.
Yeah, bear with me. Right, exactly. No, it's
so
great.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's honestly, my wife will always like joke around like when she's a teacher and she'll be like, "Oh, heard Dan on this," and she'll be like, "Ugh." So I go, it is kind of funny when it's like, I can't believe people want to talk to me. So I appreciate it. It's really cool.
Oh,
Corey,
my God,
Corey, we've golfed together in the past and stuff
absolutely.
like that. So it's really cool.
I think your wife knows my partner, Duffy.
Yes.
I'm sure, because every time like somebody will say, "Oh my God, did you see that video?" Is like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. That's my wife.
Could care less. Yeah. So where does she teach?
She teaches at East Irondequoit Middle School.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
so she was right there.
Nice. Well, give us a little bit of your background here. Originally from where?
Originally from Webster.
Okay,
So I was born and
raised.
raised here.
Nice.
Yeah, so like that was always like the dream kind of, was like to get to be, I've always said it several times, but like growing up, we all wanted to be the professional athlete, just like every kid that was playing sports. And I always say I had very loving but realistic parents that were like, "Hey, by the way, if the NHL doesn't come calling, we should probably have a backup plan." And so my background was like, hey, if I'm not in the locker room being a player being interviewed after a game, I want to be the one that's in the locker room and talking about the game from the other side. So that was kind of my passion. Like, I know a lot of people talk about like, oh, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was talk to students that are coming up and they don't really know what they want to do. I'm like 12 on. I was like, I just want to talk about sports. So
well,
like
you saw Catalana on TV and he
Exactly.
inspired you. I'm sure you've never mentioned that to him ever.
So the funniest story ever is the fact of in my journey, I was started. I went to SUNY Fredonia. Like I didn't have this Syracuse degree, this journalism school. Like I just didn't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
So it was like, hey, I'll just go to a SUNY school. Was able to, luckily at Fredonia, like I was like, hey, I want to start a radio show. And they're like, okay, when do you want to start? And I was like, I don't know, when can I? They're like, tomorrow? I was like,
cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I want to call the hockey games. And they're like, cool. Like, there's a game tomorrow. And I was like, what do I have to do? And they're like, show up. And like, so like I got those opportunities by being at a small college.
Because at Syracuse, you would have had to have been a senior to even get
and apply
that
and do all those
opportunity.
things. So like,
My apology, but do you know this almost mirrors Corey's?
We talked, we're yin and yang. I mean, you have 3 girls, I got 3 boys.
Right.
Yeah, same deal.
But also you got your start, because I think most everybody at this
college,
point in time knows, that like
Where'd you go?
Corey.
Brockport, another SUNY school.
See?
Same deal.
But Corey ends up in media, at 98 PXY for 10 years.
Yeah.
As a result of of
20-year career.
Exact same thing. Starting off in college.
Yeah. So it was, and getting to do that, like there wasn't even a TV broadcast degree at Fredonia. It was just a journalism. It was like, hey, can you start a blog? And it was like, whoa, tough major. As I was also playing baseball for like Division III baseball teams. Like that was my main focus. Getting out of school then, and kind of always wanting to be on TV. Growing up watching SportsCenter, like kind of being that side of it. Back when like TV and SportsCenter was like everything.
Sure.
And cable TV, like that was it. But the long story short, I started, my first job was in Elmira. I spent 15 months in Elmira. And
I also did radio in Elmira. This is getting spooky.
Wow.
yeah, this is weird. But I will say this, 15 months in Elmira is 15 months too long to spend in Elmira.
I was in Elmira for 3 weeks, and it was 3 weeks too long.
Too long. It's something. Okay, so I was there 15 months, and then I got a job back at Channel 8 is where I started. But I always knew that like Channel 13, Mike Catalana, The Legacy, Don Alhart, all those things.
Oh God,
Yeah.
Doug Embledge.
Doug Embledge.
Oh Jesus,
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Ginny.
Yeah. Yeah. Scott Hesco, like this is it. Like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Doug and Ginny are two very, very close. So I'm shitting on both of you. Sorry, guys.
It's just, so it was always so funny. Was even when I was at 8 for 3 years, I had worked behind the scenes a little bit at Channel 13 before I went to Elmira. They kind of were like, hey, by the way, there's an opening here to be on air. Because for the longest time, I was a production assistant behind the camera. And I felt like when people were like, well, what do you want to do? And I told them, like, I want to be in front of the camera. It was like I was telling them I wanted to be an astronaut. Like, they were like, yeah.
No way.
Like, oh, this is adorable. The kid wants to be on TV. Like, okay. So I got the job. But I always kept in touch with Mike because just being the Hall of Famer that he is and things like that. So my wife and I get married. I'm working at Channel 8, but I was very good friends with Jenna Cottrell. She's who hired me in Elmira. I'm throwing a lot of names out there. We're zigging and zagging. But I invited Catalana to my wedding.
Oh wow.
And I told Jenna, I go, hey, like we were close, but like it wasn't my boss. Like you make those decisions on your wedding.
Mark, did you come to my wedding?
As a matter of fact, first time I ever met him.
This is getting real spooky.
This is weird. But I always remember telling Jenna, I was like, this is the long play. And then Catalana's at my wedding. And my father had a couple, and my father-in-law had a couple, and they're like, hey, by the way, if there's ever something that opens up, just think of my son. And it did. So that's how I ended up at Channel 13, because my father and father-in-law harassed Mike Catalana at my wedding.
Again, I mean, brilliant move.
I love the planning. Seriously,
Long play.
Yeah. You've got to.
Yeah. So I've been there since 2019.
Fortune favors the bold.
Yes.
There you go.
And now you work with Mike and Jenna for Buffalo Plus as well.
Yeah, that has really taken off. It's crazy now. Like, think about Catalana's been doing this for 3 decades, and like the way that local news and the way that people get their media and information has changed so much in his time. Like, used to be a lot of stories, and then it would a lot of highlights, and you had to be at all the games, and now it's a lot of opinion stuff. And so the YouTube channel was a way that that we could expand our opinions and knowledge and insight and creativity, and not be in just 2.5 minutes at 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock.
Which that's going to be freeing too.
It's awesome. And that's the thing, is that Mike, in the media, especially in the sports landscape, it's different. Like, it's not, there's more opinions compared to a sports reporter than there is a news reporter. Like, it's more facts, and my job's more opinion. And as Mike likes to say, like, we're trying to deliver information in the most creative way possible. So whether that's a joke, whether that's being sarcastic about something, like, there has to be that little bit of levity when you're talking about sports. I think it's something that we've done well, and that's why it's worked out well for Buffalo Plus.
But, and technology has in many ways unshackled or unfettered. It's something, creator. Well, the word creators wasn't in the popular vernacular up until 5 years ago, maybe 7, 8 years ago, something like that. But we're creators, in the small sense. You're clearly a creator, but it is because of technology that we're able to speak our opinion, and you are able to rise as a result of finally being able to not be confined or constrained by corporate America.
Yeah, and it's also like it's what's in your hands. Like, if something were to happen, breaking news for the Bills at 1:30 in the afternoon, you would have to wait until 5 or 6 o'clock at night to get the information. It's like that happens. It's like, oh shit, like we got to get on YouTube and we got to get a video out and we've got to have this. So
emergency podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the different world that is in has allowed, more of that creativity to it, because it's like we're all, and again, you're trying to grab the attention in a swipe. So it's a wild time. And I give Mike a lot of credit for calling, he's been doing this a long time, we'd like to say, right? He's been covering Super Bowls since before I was born. So to see him adapt has just been really cool, and it's just been a perfect pair.
All right,
Mark, are you my Catalana? I think you're my Catalana.
I think so. I think so.
We're just this is just weird.
Yeah.
We're just kidding.
It's a little bizarre out here.
Wow. We should have Mike on. Go ahead.
Let's pull it back to Rochester here for a minute, because we got a lot to talk about in terms of the Bills. But born in Webster, grew up there. You spent time in Elmira, which I'm sure gave you a more love and appreciation for the Rochester area.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you love most about Rochester?
For me, it's family. And and like I said, that's a big thing, was that like when I got into like this wanting to do sports, and when I was like in college, I was like, I'll go anywhere. Like I have no ties to Rochester. It's great. It's nice. And then the more that you kind of looked around, like I applied to a job in Biloxi, Mississippi, and I applied to jobs in West Virginia. And it was like,
I almost went to Nova Scotia, by the way. That was my first job.
Really?
I don't think I've ever told you that story.
That's wild.
Man.
Yeah, but like, and you're like, I'm gonna go make pennies and live far away. And
The term clubbing there is different. It's like hitting seals, not going out. Yeah. Different.
So that was one of the things. And then like, met my now wife in college, and she was very close with her family, and it was one of those things of like, hey, by the way, Rochester's got, they cover the Bills a lot. They have the Amerks, they have the Red Wings. It was like, hey, this could be a pretty cool fit. So Rochester, sports-wise, is a nice fit between getting the Bills and Sabres in Buffalo, and you also get major Division I sports with Syracuse down the street.
Yep. And then the local teams, like you mentioned, too.
Yeah, and Section 5 athletics, like that's where I like cut my teeth, and like growing up playing these sports and like understanding how cool it was to be a kid, to score a goal in a hockey game, and then like come home and have like Mike Catalana like doing your play was like, this is awesome. So like that was my family having like the DVR being like, hang on, 8's on now. Okay, when the sport's on at 10, like, okay, here we go. So like it's cool to see that from the kid side and what my parents went through, and now to be on the other side, like kind of relaying that information.
Very, very cool. Grew up a Bills fan, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay, so die hard your entire life.
No, I wasn't a Bills
You
fan.
were? Oh,
No.
really?
I thought he said no, and you were.
I assumed yes. Really?
Yeah. No, it's so weird. Like, going to college at Fredonia, like all my friends were diehard Bills fans, had season tickets. They weren't very good.
Well, there's that. Yeah.
Right. So like they were on in the house, but like my dad wasn't a big Bills fan.
So who were your teams?
I never really had a football team.
Really?
Yeah. So like, it was just like I think like growing up, I had like the Dan Marino jersey because like my name was Dan and like he was Dan. Like that was
this
it.
Works. There's a connection.
Like, this is so cool. Besides that, like football was on at the house. Like my dad was big into fantasy football, and like so you kind of rooted for like players, but we never had like a diehard team. So it is interesting when people are like, oh, you didn't pick the Bills in this game. I was like, I'm objective. Like I didn't grow up. Listen, I always say, our job is so much better when the Bills are good. Like my first year covering the beat was Rex Ryan's last year. And it was just Rex. It was just a disaster. And I'm sitting there, it's like you walk in the locker room and the players are just miserable to see you. You're just like, hi, I know I have to ask you about missing the playoffs for a 16th straight year. Like, how's it going? Like, so I like when the Bills win, but in the sports world, like I'm a diehard Atlanta Braves fan. Like that is my team. I grew up watching them. They were always on TBS. Like that's how I grew up watching baseball. And the big baseball fan. And so I was like, I'm not a Bills fan. I'm a diehard irrational baseball fan. But I'm trying to be objective in what my job is and call it as I see it.
All right. So I got to get. All right. So are you speaking past tense? Like, are you currently a Bills fan?
I wouldn't say so. Like,
it covers the team. So, like, I think actually it probably helps you quite a bit because you can remain objective. You don't have the emotional ties.
Exactly. And, like, sometimes people will be in the comments like, oh, like, this is awful. You don't get it or things like that. And I'm like, when the Atlanta Braves lost in the playoffs, like, I am irrational. Like, my day is ruined. I understand what Bills fans are feeling in that moment, but I don't have that. Like, I can go on TV and get behind a microphone and be like, hey, the team sucked today. Like, and it's X, Y, and Z why they sucked. And I have no
Doesn't harm you. It doesn't harm you as a person.
It doesn't. And I go, and I get it. Like, fan is short for fanatics. Like, they're irrational. Like, I understand that, but it's my job to try and be objective and give the information out that what I've seen.
So I'm fascinated. I'm a little bit shocked, but yeah.
Catalan is a diehard Eagles fan.
Okay.
Really? Okay.
And Jenna grew up a Giants fan. So, like, we're three people that have a very successful Buffalo Plus YouTube channel that, like, didn't grow up rooting for the team. It's just, you root for players is the other thing I've realized, is that you have these relationships with guys that you're like, hey, he's really nice. He has a great story. He sat down, and you're like Micah Hyde, great person. Like, it's like, I hope Micah Hyde does well. I hope this person does well. I'm not necessarily rooting for the team I'm not cheering in the press box. It's just the fact of, hey, damn right, I want to go to the Super Bowl. Like, I want this team to, win two more games. I want to go to New Orleans. But my heart won't be broken if they don't, like most of Western New York.
Okay. All right. So wait. So let's, because I know a lot of people listening are going to want to know about specifically what's going on with the Bills team today. So you talked about you root for players. Are there any players currently on the Bills roster that you like, that you love, or that you're rooting for, like that you're a big fan of?
Well, I think everybody always asks about Josh, right? Like, so, and like everybody, I genuinely think he's a very good dude. Like, they talk about, and you've heard it, oh, he's Deion Dawkins called him a big kid, and Dawson Knox calling him like a golden retriever of the team. Like, we had heard things, and you hear things of like, hey, Diggs is one way maybe in front of the camera, and he's maybe another thing when people aren't looking, and you hear those things. I've never heard a bad thing about Josh, like that has any background to it of like, he's a genuinely good person. Like, I have heard he goes like the Oshai Children's Hospital, like without the cameras, like when it's not a media stunt. Like, he doesn't do it for attention.
Well, so he's such a good guy, literally. Like, I'm not sure if you saw, but the New York Times actually 2 days ago ran an enormous article about the fact that Josh Allen is a good guy. And it's just, and literally the article just goes on and on and on and on with like all, like probably, I don't know, 12, 14, 15 people all being quoted about like, oh yeah, I remember when he did this. I remember over and over and over again. I mean, like that's pretty.
And it's the story of the 0-star recruit. Like, back in 2020, I was planning on going out to Firebaugh at the time, and then COVID hit, but I was going to go to Josh's hometown to try and like get to see like, what's it like in this tiny little town in California? But I still got to talk to some of his coaches and principals, and they were like, he's just a normal kid that just happens to be incredible at playing football.
Yeah,
but nobody knew at the time, having to go to junior college, all of those things. Like, you also have that up against Aaron Rodgers just being a total and complete like asshole at the same time.
Thank you for saying it.
Last time you were on the podcast, literally. Yeah.
Oh dear God! Like, did you see the Netflix? Yeah. I mean,
he's just awful.
I mean, terrible. Like, there's nothing. I mean, no.
So like, you couldn't pick two personalities that are more different.
Right.
But like other example, like I know Russell Wilson, like, he doesn't give his teammates his own cell phone number. He gives them to his manager. So if you want to ask Russell Wilson to come over to have dinner, you have to ask like permission from his manager. Like, there's weird stuff. Yeah. And Josh, to be one of the most powerful, biggest names in Western New York.
In Western New York? Like, I mean, like in the world of sports. Let's just put it out there.
Yeah, he's top 10 probably in sports.
I'd say easily, yeah.
You know, he just seems like he's a regular guy. And like, again,
he wants the ball.
Just wants to hang out, make movie jokes, like quote movie lines, and hang out with the boys. Like, it's pretty cool. And then to see all of the, then my wife gets into it because it's Haley, and she loves that aspect of everything, and him being engaged and all of this stuff. So he's one of the guys that, like I said, not that you would root against a player, but like, if you're wondering like, hey, is he a good guy? Like, yeah, I think he really is just a good dude.
Okay, so the answer to almost any question that Corey and I are going to pose, almost any question that is being posed to you, the answer is probably Josh. Yeah. I mean, let's face it. Like, he's the center of everything. So let's just step away from Josh. Is there another player on the team that you really that you find that you're a fan of? That was the original question.
It's a dumb point, but like, I've become like genuinely friends with Reed Ferguson, the long snapper. Like, he's awesome. He's just a genuinely cool guy, and because a lot of
the long snapper.
So the guy that snaps the ball. Yes, the guy that snaps the ball.
Aware. Yeah. Like, and I think like Josh is making what $22 million a year. I think he's making like $1 million a year. Yeah. Like a little bit of difference. Yeah. But okay. But
it's that dynamic too of like, he's been on the team the longest. So like, I have walked past him enough, and you start to say, "Hey, how are the kids? Oh, hey, by the way, my wife's pregnant again. Hey, congratulations!" And then it's, "Hey, how are things going?" And like you're not talking about football.
And every time you say his name, his neck just snaps because like somebody's
Attention.
actually thinking, yes, exactly. Oh my God.
And it's like little things. Like my brother was a college long snapper. He played Division III football. So like we kind of hit it off of like, hey, like how do you like learning the ins and outs of like the tiny minutia of a job? And I remember we were talking to him, I think during the pandemic and like joking around, and he's like, yeah, a lot of times like he'll go to weddings and obviously he's not recognizable, and somebody would be like, oh, what do you do? And he'll be like, I played for the Bills, and they're like,
No, really?
They're like trainer, and he's like, no, I'm on the team, and so like that that's so funny to me to sit there and be like, he's just a guy that can literally probably walk down anywhere in Buffalo, and 90% of the people wouldn't know who he is. So like,
I mean, kind of genius move to be honest, because he's still making really good money.
making good money.
He's playing in 5 plays a game?
Yeah.
6?
Yeah.
Maybe?
And the goal for his job is to not be known.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It is to be invisible, because only when he messes up do people know who he is.
Yep.
So
Oh yeah, very true.
Oh,
yeah,
high snap.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm in the
Yeah.
news.
Yeah.
I'm in the
and then
news
it's
now.
like, and then the Jim Nance has to go to his paper. He's like, the long snapper is Reed Ferguson.
Got blown up on that play.
Yeah, so like he's just been a genuinely like good person that you can talk to. I always remember meeting Khalil Shakir for the first time, going up to him at training camp, and Mike and I introducing ourselves, and he introduced himself to us. And he was like,
Oh,
he's
that's
like,
great.
He's like, hi, I'm Khalil Shakir. It's like, we know who you are, man. Like, I appreciate it, but we know who you are. And like, you know, getting to see him like when he was at the PGA, and he was like, hey guys, how are you? And you're like, I don't want to bother you. I'm so sorry. Like, this is awkward. Like, I'm seeing you like you're
In real life.
In real life. And he's like, no, what are you guys up to? It's a beautiful day. And you're like,
Well, this is really like this is the kind of stuff that I want, and I think probably a lot of other people like because there is such adoration, and like and people just love these guys, but we don't necessarily know the behind the scenes. So yeah,
well, and I think that's the biggest thing, as I've always talked about, is that like we expect football players and professional athletes to be like robots.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's like, hey, he had a bad day, like he stinks. It's like, maybe he's fighting with his spouse. Maybe his kids were sick. Like, they are human beings. They're allowed to have emotions. They're allowed to have bad days. We are the same thing, I imagine, at our jobs of, you can be distracted at times. They're normal people that just happen to be incredibly gifted at a sport that, puts them on this pedestal, and also just realizing like, hey, they're just people too. They're just really good at a sport.
all right. Can I ask one more before
of
you?
course. Yeah.
All right. So who's the most intriguing player?
Matt Collins.
Oh,
There's no question.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
other than Matt Collins,
that's
because he's obviously the most intriguing. No two ways about it. The guy's in the kindest way. He's odd. He's a really odd guy, and I
Yeah.
love it. Like you can't help but love the
Yeah, I remember he was the first player I talked to at training camp. I got a sit-down interview with him early on in training camp, kind of before the whole thing kind of blew up. Was just like, I had done research. I had known somebody that covered the team for the Falcons. He used to be on Atlanta, and he did kind of a story about his quirks and his uniqueness. And talking to Matt Collins about the story I did, he doesn't wear shoes, doesn't use utensils because the food, your hands will then regulate the temperature of the food so that it will tell your mouth the temperature of the food so you don't burn your tongue.
Okay.
I mean, airtight logic.
So I was like,
There we go.
And that's the thing, is that he's not wrong. The only funny thing was he said he believes that small cats steal your soul.
Right. Like he has
believes
this
that-
aversion to cats. Yeah.
Yes. Now he said his father had a tiger, like
Legit tiger.
and I go, like, a real one, and he goes, it wasn't a plushie, and so he's like, that's a cool cat. He's like, I like big cats. And I was like, he's like, small cats will steal your soul.
How small? Like 13-pound Maine Coon? Is that cool, or is that still too small?
I don't know.
What, you got to ask him a follow up.
So that's the dynamic, and just his, and like he does have logic behind the bare feet and the way that your arch is supposed to walk and things like that. But he's another guy too that like you ask him about one thing and it's always a very thoughtful, charismatic answer of like, hey, what are you doing here and what are you doing there? It's just a well thought out answer. There are no cliches. Like we joke around, Josh is the king of cliches. Like it's so quick how he can turn everything into, we're just taking it one day at a time,
Sure, yeah.
or so I always appreciate those. I always appreciate those guys that actually will like say stuff makes our job a little bit easier. And then Deion's pretty eccentric too. Deion Dawkins.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's pretty out there to begin with. But
Does he wear shoes?
He wears shoes, but he's also another guy that like has a personality for an offensive lineman, isn't afraid to show it. And he's another guy too that I've seen outside in the real world, and he's the same person with us in local media as when he goes on Fox, Sports Center, ESPN. And I always appreciate that because it's like we're here kind of doing the dirty work, and then Fox Sports 1 drops in, and it's like, oh, so now you give all the good answers to them. He's the same way inside and out.
Let's face it, with the departure of Stephon Diggs last year, like this seems to be a team of really good guys, like one after another. But back to Deion Dawkins for just a second, and then we'll turn it over to you, Corey. But what is it that makes Deion Dawkins off field so intriguing in your mind?
Just his person. He's a big human being, and a lot of times it's a unsexy position to be on the line, and they're kind of just, hey, be quiet and shut up and push people around. Yeah. And he embraces that, and he has this clothing line and his persona of the snowman, of all of these kind of things. He even said, like, we don't get a lot of recognition. Like, there's no best offensive lineman award. So
but he's
protecting, right? So, but he's protecting for Josh Allen. He says that if Josh wins the MVP, he's going to be like, that's my MVP because I'm helping him succeed.
Yeah, sure. But the position is the second highest paid position?
Left tackle.
Left tackle. Second highest paid position. Yeah. So, don't cry for me now, Deion.
Oh, no. And one last thing about Diggs, because obviously that thing has been brushed to the side, but I always said that Stephon Diggs is an alpha. When Stephon Diggs walks in a room, you sit up. You sit up straight because he is the guy. I believe that he's a great football player. I don't really think that there was that big of a riff that people made it out to be. I do believe that people and players and coaches and people have expiration dates. And I think what Stephon Diggs brought to Buffalo was immense, and his talent and turning Josh into be almost that killer mindset. We always heard about his level of compete in practice. I think his expiration date just ran out. Like, I still think he's going to be a great player when he recovers from his ACL surgery. And I think Josh Allen's going to be just fine on the other side. But
come on, better. I mean, Josh Allen is a better player. Deion may have brought him along, but Josh Allen is a better player, and the Bills are a better team as a result of Deion taking off.
And leading into this game,
Stephon taking off.
My concern is, and Jenna made a point this week on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel that I really loved. She said, your strengths get you to the playoffs. Your weaknesses get you eliminated.
Fair, yeah.
So a weakness for this Bills team that we've had going back to training camp, going back to leaving Stephon Diggs and moving on from him is, who's your best player that Josh can throw the ball to?
Yeah.
So it's great.
Crunch time. Who are you going to? Yeah.
Who's the dude? Like, who's the guy that you're going, hey, we need to get 8 yards on this play, and Josh has got to throw this guy the ball. So while they have been great at spreading the ball around, and their strengths have been everybody eats, and that's great, and kumbaya, what happens when things get rough and you need a guy to turn to and say, hey, maybe that's Josh. Maybe that's Josh running over 3 linebackers and getting the 8 yards on his own, but that's a concern because still in the grand scheme of things, this wide receiver room is still lacking in the terms of playoffs.
All right, yes, but you got so many. You got Keon Coleman, you've got Matt Collins, you've got Khalil Shakir.
Throughout the season, Shakir has definitely kind of stepped into that role.
100%. Yeah. Still has 839 yards. Like if you were to sit there on any other team, you'd be like, that's your number one wide receiver. And Amari Cooper, a guy they traded for, who you thought would be this bigger impact, hasn't really had that. Keon Coleman has had flashing plays that have been really exciting and thrilling.
But he's also just, it's first year.
But they also say at this point, you're not a rookie anymore. You've been 17 games. I know he had the injury, things like that. There is a little bit of a concern. Josh has made what the loss of Diggs allowed Josh to not have to force the ball to anybody. And I'm not saying Diggs demanded the ball, but if you got Stephon Diggs over there, you're looking there first. It's opened up Josh to kind of be wherever the ball needs to go, that everybody eats mindset has worked. So I do have concerns. I think that also falls on Brandon Beane, the GM, of just, hey, you got to make sure that, look, this was supposed to be a year in transition. This was supposed to be a soft reset.
We're not supposed to be here, yeah.
Right, you're not supposed to be here. So it also, look at the roster of 2 Pro Bowlers. The Ravens have 9, all pros. The Ravens are a better team on paper. I don't think that's a hot take to say.
Well, and they beat them earlier in the season, so they've proven it on the field, too. It's not just looking at stats and paper.
Correct.
Well, it leads into Sunday, I guess. what do you think happens? Can they overcome? I mean, the fact that they played earlier in the season, I think, is an advantage because it's really tough to beat a team twice. Mm-hmm. Is this the time they're able to do it?
I like the Bills in this spot.
You do? Okay.
Yeah, and I
as a non-Bills fan, and
I also picked the Ravens back in week 4.
Okay.
I liked the Ravens in that spot. I thought it was a bad matchup at the time, and as has been talked about, Von Miller was suspended for that game. Terrell Bernard did not play. He was injured. Matt Milano was still recovering. Taron Johnson did not play. And Taylor Rapp got injured for running headfirst into Derrick Henry's leg, trying to tackle him in that game.
Yes.
So not a great...
I didn't know a lot about football, but if you're trying to tackle somebody, you don't so
use
with your
head, especially not Derrick Henry.
Wait, let me take a note there. Thank you.
So they were decimated. It was just a bad matchup. The Baltimore Ravens at night at primetime games at home are like 23-2 in their last 25 games. Like, it was just a buzzsaw. This week they have summoned Greek philosophy. I don't know if you heard this. Terrell Bernard had a quote from, I believe it's Heraclitus, who said that no man walks the same river twice, for the river is not the same and he is not the same man.
Oh.
So they are like a lot of times they're saying, go back to that matchup. What have you guys learned? What have you guys learned? And everything we heard this week was, hey, we're not the same team. Like, we're not the same team from back in week 4. There will be 7 different starters for the Bills this week that were not on the team or that were injured back in week 4.
That's great.
So it's a different matchup. I think that Sean McDermott has shown the ability more than ever this year, not to get like too much into like the X's and O's and strategy, but Sean used to always play zone defense. It would just be, hey, you cover a spot. If a player runs into you, you cover them. He's changed over the years. He's understood his past failures and where he has come up short. I think the adjustments that he can make and has learned over the last few years of those playoff failures have kind of, at times he's talked this year about scars. Yeah, hey, when you get a scar on your face, it's not always a bad thing. You look at it and you remember what you did wrong to kind of get better. So all of those things, and then I think just it's who do you trust more? It's Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. I trust Josh Allen a little bit more, and the game being at home.
Well, I was going to bring that up next.
Is massive.
Yeah.
Is absolutely massive.
And also it's going to be 14 degrees, which I think probably plays to the Bills' favor.
Yeah. Nobody likes playing in the cold. I always remember like talking to there have been a couple games where I was like, hey, Renee, I love you. Like, it's going to be, if I don't make it back, like I'll never forget the win game. Like, and then there was the playoff game where Josh was perfect and it was negative degrees. Like, this is nuts. But they embrace it. Nobody likes playing in it. Like, there are players on the Bills that are from South Florida and from the South. Like, it's not like they're like, oh, we grew up in this. But there is a sense of embracing it, and that's what the Bills do. I go back to the Niners game this year. That looked like a game where a West Coast team wanted nothing to do about playing in the snow.
Yeah.
And while the Bills didn't say this is awesome, they said, like, this is Buffalo. This is who we are. We're going to embrace it. So I think they will embrace the cold. It's not like Baltimore is a warm weather city, but I think the atmosphere, they were 9-0 at home this year. There will be plenty of MVP chance for Josh when he does something.
Does this decide the MVP race, the winner of this game?
It doesn't. Unfortunately, it should. They should just winner take all.
Yeah.
It's whoever wins this game gets the award would be awesome.
But hasn't it already been decided? I mean,
correct.
Ostensibly,
voting is done. So the voting was done after week 18. So whatever happens, the votes are already in. We just won't know until February. But
So you honestly think that let's talk about injury, because also I think also playing to our favor is that we have a strong team right now. Mm-hmm. They've got a few injuries. Flowers?
Zay Flowers is the big one as we're taping this. He missed practice on Wednesday and Thursday. That's usually not a good sign of a player playing on Sunday. He's responsible for a third of their receptions, a third of their receiving yards. He's a big loss. It's kind of nice though that they also have a future Hall of Famer in Derrick Henry, who's
stealing people's souls.
Yeah,
when he's
stiff arming
them.
people. Yeah, so just ask Josh Norman. There's some of those things that when Derrick Henry signed with Baltimore this offseason, it felt like a perfect marriage, and it has been. The Ravens want to play a physical style of game, so you have this bulldozer of a human being in Derrick Henry, and then you have a Ferrari in Lamar Jackson, who is the most dynamic player in all of football. Like, when the ball's in his hands, for as good as Josh is running, I've compared it this week to, like, Josh runs for first downs. Like, Josh wants to get 10 yards.
Yep.
Lamar wants a touchdown. Like when he takes off, he's not thinking about, I'm just going to get a few yards. He's like, I'm going to get all of them. Yep. So that meant mindset. Ed Oliver talked this week. I thought it was really interesting because even the Denver game, Denver goes down the field, scores on an opening touchdown, and it's like, they're screwed. Like here it comes. Don't overreact to like opening drives. Like it's a long game.
Well, they're feeling each other out at that point too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of times defenses are kind of just seeing what they're doing, like you said, filling it out. And for the opposing team, like those are their scripted plays. They're the plays they have practiced all week. They're the ones they're most comfortable with. They're like, these are what we're going to do. After that, it's all about in-game adjustments, which Sean and Bobby Babich have been phenomenal in the second half of the season.
The second half of the season, but also second half of the game.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there is some brilliance that's going on in that locker room because they are analyzing what the hell's going on in those first two quarters, and they're coming back onto the field the third quarter reflective of what it is that they learned in those first two, in the first half of the game. It is really brilliant. It's pretty remarkable.
And again, I think people say, well, you have an opening drive touchdown. The coach didn't have them prepared. And it's like, that's not it. I go, coaching is so much more. Hey, they're doing something we didn't expect. So how can we now make that adjustment? So you're not going to stop Lamar Jackson. You're not going to shut out the Ravens this week. This game kind of reminds me a little bit of the Lions game where it was 48-42, some wild game. And so I always remember complimenting the Bills defense in that game. And people were like, you're an idiot. Like they gave up 42 points. And I go, yeah, but they forced a 3-and-out to start the game. They scored a touchdown. They forced a 3-and-out game and scored a touchdown. They were up 14-0 and they forced 2 punts. That was the difference in the game. This game is going to be about which team can force the other team, I think, to have one more punt. Ed Oliver talked this week that he said that their linebackers coach and D-line coach said, like, you're not going to stop Lamar. You hope to contain him. And he compared him to Kobe Bryant. And he goes, Kobe's going to get his points. Yeah. Like, he's going to score 25 to 30 points a game. Don't let him score 60. Don't, understand, Lamar's going to make plays that you're going to go, oh, how did we not get him? Oh, unbelievable play. Okay, get up. Just stop the next one. Try and contain him. It's not stopping him. So I like the Bills in this spot. I feel like the home field advantage is a big factor. And Lamar, for as good as he has been, and maybe he wins his third MVP, he has struggled at times in the postseason. He has been the reason at times these last few years that the Ravens have lost. Josh has never really been the reason the Bills have lost in a postseason. If anything, he's been the best player on the field.
He's been stuck on the sidelines.
Exactly. Yeah. So you go back to 13 seconds game, nobody has ever played quarterback better on a losing team than that game. Yeah. So
should he have played safety? Throw him out there.
I like the way you think.
Yeah.
Get him out linebacker, something. Yeah.
He's a big boy.
Yeah.
He can handle his business.
So I like this game. I think I picked it as 31-27. Bills get the win.
Okay. All right. Love that. I got one more question. Yeah, and then, of course, we're benefiting here from your brilliance, your prognostication ability. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got to ask. So ultimately, who wins the Super Bowl this year? And I love the fact that you're not a Bills fan. So it's going to come to us.
Yeah, I really do think the Bills have a good chance to win the Super Bowl.
Really,
I think that if the defense can figure it out and Sean can be creative enough and make adjustments, I really think whoever wins this game beats the Chiefs next week. I think this is a tougher matchup for Buffalo. The Ravens are than the Chiefs. I think they just match up better. Against the Chiefs, they're not as much of a physical running team, and they've had success, not in the playoffs, but they've had success against Mahomes. And then I think the Lions come out of the NFC, so we could be seeing a rematch of the shootout that you had, and then at that point,
can you think of two more teams that desperately
the fan
need
bases,
a Super Bowl win?
The two fan bases that deserve it more than ever. If that's the case, Bourbon Street may run out of alcohol. I can't imagine two more fan bases that would just drink New Orleans dry. Yeah.
What happens to the city of Buffalo if they win?
It crumbles.
Literally, can you imagine Niagara Square?
No.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and especially for our job, we've already had to have meetings about, hey, to be prepared. When are you flying down? What would the coverage be? We've already kind of have our plans in place, and it's not a breaking news. I'm sure Buffalo has a parade mapped out for their city already. That's not just something you throw together in 12 hours. Yeah. So it is crazy to think about what that would be like. I've
got a friend who every year he books 3 hotel rooms for around the time frame of when the parade day would be.
Really? So he's not from here.
He's in
he's
Rochester. But just because you're not driving back to Rochester from Buffalo during the parade day. So and then and then if you're out of the playoffs, he'll cancel and he gets his money back. But he books those ones just in case.
I honestly, like I would probably drive to Buffalo for that parade.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, and I don't go to parades. I hate parades. That would be insane. That would be really insane.
Where would you park?
I don't know, probably like on a sidewalk somewhere, and then dare somebody to give me a ticket. Yeah.
Mark is notorious for his VIP parking. It's very creative.
I just can't even imagine. It's just one of those things, and to see, I don't know. It's wild. I would love to cover a Super Bowl. It would just be a ton of fun, and this team there is a lightness and a freshness. They seem to have the right vibe. I'm not saying they're going to run away from
momentum.
the Ravens.
I mean, right by momentum. Like everything just seems to.
Yep.
There are all those intangibles, and this seems to be a team that is benefiting right now from some of those, many of those.
I agree. So I'm not saying, like I said, Ravens fans have infiltrated my social media and the YouTube channel of just being like, you guys are gonna be like, it's the MVP. It's the toxicity of social media. It's like I can sit there and say I think Josh Allen should be MVP because I think he's done more with his team with less players around him than Lamar Jackson has.
He doesn't have Derrick Henry. Yeah.
Correct. But I can also say that Lamar's had an unbelievable season. Like, two things can be true. I don't think there's a wrong answer. If I had a vote, I had a guy that told me on the radio the other day, he goes, well, what they should do is they should do co-MVPs. He goes, that'll make everybody happy. And
makes no one happy.
I go, that would be the worst possible thing that could happen. Yeah. I go, that would be just a disaster where everybody would just be more upset than if one person just won.
Oh my God, yeah.
It is interesting that you bring it up, the narrative in sports specifically, and I think it certainly bleeds out into just life in general.
Yeah.
The fact you have to tear down, who you don't want to win.
Yeah.
When in reality, all you really need to do is just lift up who you do want to win.
It's the Jordan and LeBron. It's for a while. It's been Josh and Mahomes. Like, yes, Mahomes is great. Mahomes is a very good quarterback. You can sit there and say Josh Allen is as good. He doesn't have the resume. He doesn't have the MVPs and things like that. But you don't have to say, well, Mahomes is the best and Josh stinks. It's like, they're both great. Like, these guys are both unbelievable. LeBron and Jordan, that is sports, but it is trying to get past that of like saying like, hey, I think Josh Allen should win MVP. So you think that Lamar stinks?
He sucks. He's the worst quarterback ever.
I go, when did I say that? I didn't say that at all. Like, it's just
both things can be factual. We can have more than one great player.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting. And like I said, Sunday will just be, it'll be electric. There have been very few games, I always remember some of the playoff games that just being on the field, like I said, people have had gone to games. Electric atmosphere, and people I know have sat front row. I'm very lucky in my career that like I've been on the sideline, and there's like nothing like it. Like there's just, you can be front row in the end zone, and it's still different than when you're on the field. And I don't understand how like ACLs don't blow out on every single play, and I don't understand like how these guys that are 6'6" and 330 pounds are so fast.
Yep.
Like it is insane. So it'll be a memorable night. I feel like either way, could be a good way or a bad way.
There we go. Dan, thank you so much for the insight. Really appreciate it. Where can people find you? Obviously on the air on Wham, but also Buffalo Plus.
Yeah, Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. We always joke around, like, comment, subscribe, and share, all of that kind of stuff. And then we also are on X or Twitter, whatever we're calling it now, at Dan
Twitter
Fetes.
forever.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna go.
Come on, Threads.
Oh, Threads.
Get over to Threads, bud.
I'm also on Blue Sky.
Oh, you are on Blue Sky?
Yeah,
but you're not on
Blue
Threads
Sky
yet.
too. Yeah, no, I think I have a Threads.
Wow.
There's too many.
There's too.
There
many.
Yeah.
There's too many.
All right, so we're going to segue into the next, but feel free to jump in if there's anything that that might be of interest as well. But before we do, thank you so much. This was
I appreciate it.
A great conversation, just so interesting, and the fact that you took time out of your incredibly busy schedule to spend some time with us means so much. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for coming back. Flying 43 hours to make this.
I had to.
I'm honored.
I mean, he was there in LaGuardia. It's the end of the trip, and he's like, I got to get back for Dan. I got to dig deep.
I was so tired, but I was like, Dan's coming. That's it. We got to get there.
You nailed it.
Appreciate it.
All right, a couple of things here, Rochester-wise. You want to chat about Mark? Your favorite topic, the Rochester mayor.
Oh, you want to go down that road?
We do have a new candidate that's at least going to be throwing their hat into the run. Mary Lupin has announced her mayoral run.
Oh,
Thoughts?
I love the way that you just teed that up.
Thoughts?
It's just like tea and crumpets, like, you know, or like, and Mary Lupin is. Do you know who Mary Lupin? Do you know anything about her?
I've seen her name in a lot of stories. Yes, she's on city council right now. Kind of.
She's
I'll let you say.
insane. She's
he doesn't pull punches.
She is insane.
Yeah.
She's a terrible member of city council. She's an embarrassment to governments worldwide. Literally, this woman. I mean, if she had her way, she would power up a bulldozer, run Todd Baxter over, and knock down the jails in this community. She's a terrible candidate. Thankfully, her very good friend Rachel Barnhart has even acknowledged on Dan's favorite social media platform, Twitter.
Dan's like, I'm out of this conversation. I'm just on my phone over here. I'm out of my own business. Please leave me alone.
So Rachel has even stated that she realizes that this is a long shot. So, but I'm actually meeting
But
tomorrow.
better option than Malik Evans.
Wow, that's a really
All right, Aaron Rodgers, Malik Evans.
Aaron Rodgers all day long. All day long. No, actually, like Mary is so bad that I would actually
Would you donate towards Malik's campaign? No. Oh, okay.
No, but
I don't know if he would accept at this point.
but if forced between the two, I would prefer Malik. But that being said, I don't want either of them to be the next mayor of the city of Rochester. I'm meeting with somebody tomorrow who's an incredibly qualified candidate. We did this 20 years ago with Bob Duffy.
Whoa.
What?
A qualified candidate wants to run?
Yeah. Well, no. I didn't say that. I'm meeting with somebody who is a qualified individual.
Got it.
That I think
Have to convince them to run.
I don't think it's going to take much. Okay. So I'm really excited about this. I mean, we did this 20 years ago when we asked Bob Duffy to run for mayor. Wade Norwood was supposed to be the next mayor of the city of Rochester. We asked Bob at our dining room table if he would consider running, and boom, overnight. We transformed the race, and obviously Bob went on. So I'm hoping that something similar might play out tomorrow. We'll see what happens.
Well, props to you for not just commenting on these things and complaining. Actually,
that's so
doing
easy.
something,
I mean, that's
right?
so easy. Otherwise, you know what? I'm just going to shut my mouth. But yes. Well, that's very, very kind of you. So, I'll reference that when it is that the email starts coming in. Okay. So, yeah.
But we are expecting. More candidates will be running. It's not going to be just the two.
Yeah. I mean, there's a gentleman, I can't remember his name, but he's
What's Lovely Warren doing these days?
You know what? Honestly, for all the controversy, she actually got shit done. Okay. She got shit done. I mean, you could walk down the street of the streets of Rochester, New York, when she was mayor. You could park your Kia on a street anywhere in the city of Rochester without fear of it being stolen.
Sure.
And in throngs of people being run over or potentially shot up. So anyway, there we have it.
Okay. And then also a new candidate for DA.
You know what I mean? Oh gosh. Let me just start by saying that Sandra Dorley is an incredibly good friend. I love Sandra. Did she screw up in regard to the whole garage issue? Yes, absolutely. We all know that. We don't need to relive that. But I just want to say that I genuinely think that this community was well served by Sandra in the years that she spent as our district attorney. It's doubtful that I don't know this for a fact, but I'm assuming that is public knowledge that she's not going to be running again. And that's a loss for this community. That's definitely a loss for this community. Thankfully, I've got a very close, very good friend who I think is going to be the next DA of the city in Monroe County, and there's some initial conversations being had with him. That one I think I think some decisions have been made. It's just a matter of starting to roll out the makings of a campaign. So, okay. And I think that again, hats off to Sandra, but thankfully this candidate is going to be a great district attorney because I think this one's in the bag.
Fantastic. All right. Well, exciting stuff.
Yeah, exciting. Anything on your end in terms of Rochester?
Nothing to that level. I'm not, making people mayor or the DA. Yeah, right. I've heard positive reviews of a new restaurant.
Oh, there we go. Which one?
Hard Seg, Patron Saint. Dan, have you gone yet?
No. Where's that?
It's on East Main. New steakhouse in town.
Ooh.
Miles is that one, right?
Yes. Yeah. Josh Miles.
Josh Miles in that one. I've heard fantastic things.
I'm supposed to actually be having dinner there a week from tonight.
Yep.
Twice. When I was
Double booked?
when I was overseas,
In Tanzania.
I got a text message from somebody saying, "Hey, I've got reservations for 6 of us for patron
We'll take
saint."
the other one.
Yeah. That's true.
And
Grab it.
I was like, "Oh, that's fantastic!" Because when you're overseas, my calendar, my Gmail calendar, like everything is shifted.
yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm looking, I'm like, "Oh yeah, Friday night is free," and then I land, and I'm like, "Oh shit!" Like I've agreed to have dinner with 2 separate people.
I'm just
next
imagining
Friday
Mrs.
night.
Doubtfire right now.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
What was that?
I was imagining Mrs. Doubtfire having to go from one to the next.
There we go.
Obviously, one of your favorite movies.
Yeah,
Mark.
no, I do like that. That's a
Pie
great
with
film.
face.
I mean, like that is a great film. That scene, with like just fantastic. So anyway, I'm gonna be I gotta cancel one of those. But I'll let you know how it goes. You haven't had there yet? You haven't had dinner there yet?
No, not yet.
No?
We actually went to the lake house last night.
And?
I know we never go there. It's great.
Yeah,
It was really good.
It's good.
I'm always like, date night, let's go.
Yeah.
I'm like, let's go to Patron Saint. She's like, no, we're not going to go to Rochester. 'Cause we're
Ah,
ending.
there you
but
go.
it's on the cards for at least some point. Our good friends went, said it was phenomenal. I mean, it's interesting, right? You think about Rochester, not a ton of steakhouses.
No.
Like, we got Max Chop House.
Not a ton of steakhouses. Can we just say there aren't a ton of restaurants?
We've got a fair amount of restaurants, I would say. You go to the same 3, that's why.
Well, no, I just think back to, the glory days of Rochester. Let's go back, 25, 30 years ago. I don't think you were here yet. But, oh my God, like any day of the
was
week.
10.
You could, any day of the week, you could like go to like a different restaurant. And there was a point in time when we had Rooney's and we had Negresco and we had Edwards and we had the Rio. And those were like all really like high end. Those are the high end restaurants.
Sure.
Let alone all there was great Indian, there was great Thai, there was a great Italian, so many different restaurants. Iggy's Study on Park Avenue, like a great sandwich shop. Oscars on Monroe Avenue, exactly. There were so many options, and unfortunately we have very few of those. So anyway, anything else, Bud?
That was a history lesson.
I didn't get a single reference in that one.
Sorry. Well, those of you who are older, I'm sure you
Lake House
remember
is
a
good,
lot of
though.
those restaurants.
It's solid.
So,
Yeah.
Lake House is solid.
100%, absolutely.
Anything else for Rochester on your end? Before
that's it.
Dan, anything going on in Rochester that you think you might?
I have no idea. I have a litter of kids at home.
You're trying to survive.
When you guys talk about going out to dinner, I was like, oh, I remember that dinner.
Yep.
That was so much fun going out to dinner with my wife.
Well,
Yeah.
come on, 18 years from now,
yes.
you'll be able to go to dinner once again.
Before 18 years from now.
Yeah.
You gotta find really brave babysitters. Is what you have to do.
Exactly. We're just in it. We call this a phase.
100%.
We're just
Yep.
in the phase.
Exactly.
Like Renee's,
Yeah.
my wife's always like, why haven't we gone out like recently? It's like that thing that we've been holding in like nonstop. She's a chill baby. She's a chill 5-week-old, but I don't want to bring that out to other people, and that adds more stress to me. And then the 1.5-year-old Corey, like we were joking around about, middle one's the handful.
100%.
The middle one's the handful.
Yeah. I agree. Well, good stuff. Well, again, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it. Mark, welcome back. I'm glad
Thanks so much, Bud.
You made the trek back.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Did you know it was going to be 48 hours back before you made the trip?
Well, it was only 43 hours, so let's not don't exaggerate. Yeah, I mean,
okay,
come on. I mean, yeah.
Don't want to get crazy.
Potato.
I may or may not have. I don't know. It was last June that I made these reservations. But did I talk about Notre Dame?
No.
Okay. All right. So really quickly, I know we're in. So Tanzania, like great. Had a great time had an okay time in Tanzania, but we had a 7-hour layover in Paris. So the highlight of the trip, from my perspective, was taking the train from Charles de Gaulle into Paris itself. We went and we walked through Notre Dame. And
Rebuilt Notre Dame.
It was
How many, they put $1 billion.
$1 billion,
into that, right?
Yeah.
the place is spectacular.
It should be for $1 billion.
I would hope so.
Oh my! I've been to Notre Dame before. Like, I couldn't.
Well, there you go.
It is
It was worth it.
transcendent. Like you walk through, it's transcendent. It is unbelievable. So that was really honestly, I had to go to Tanzania in order to have a transcendent experience in Paris.
Yeah, that's
Got that.
That is what it is. All right. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it, or listening as well. And we'll talk to you again next time.